Well, hello everybody. I'm Bob Baranick and welcome back to Bob Baranick's Treehouse. It's cold outside, as you can tell from that pan that we just showed. So no Hawaiian shirt today. I'm bundled up, and as promised previously, this episode is going to be about building a miniature treehouse in a living plant. I have two options here. I have this beautiful variegated plant that has gorgeous leaves, but the branch structure is very plain. And then I have this boxwood here that's got an interesting branch structure. When we prune it back, it should make a better looking tree. Boxwood is something we used at Disneyland Storybook Land a lot. It scales real nice to miniature buildings. So I think we're gonna go with this option. Going to transfer it to this pot. It's very similar to a bonsai, except it's not true bonsai art, and we might explain that a little bit more. But here we go with our decision. I think we're going to go with this one here on this side, the darker color tree, and we're going to cut it up a little bit and make it interesting. So let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so we've committed. We've got our little boxwood tree replanted in this nice pot. I really like this pot because it's very wide. And now we're looking at, I think I actually have the right angle, correct angle here. This should be the front. And we're going to go ahead and prune this tree up. It's got a really interesting shape. So let's find its soul, shall we? Here we go. All right, here we are. Pretty radical. I know, I cut it way back, but you can see what's nice now is I've got an interesting branch structure. As much as I like the other plant option with the variegated leaves, it had a very boring plant structure, just a straight trunk with branches coming off of it. This is more interesting. This is going to be more fun to build a treehouse in. And I know I've cut it back radically, but I was comfortable enough pruning this back to where I can build a couple of different buildings in it. So the next step will be our drawings, which we're going to get to right now. And as I said in a previous episode, this is inspired by a Swiss Family Treehouse. It's not going to be a copy of the Swiss Family Treehouse, but one of the things I was so fond of, if you remember that episode, was the water wheel. And right after we released that episode, Disney released their drawing of what the Adventureland Treehouse is going to be. And needless to say, I'm really happy about it, as I think all fans are, that the water wheel and the buckets are coming back to Adventureland Disneyland. I welcome that, and I congratulate them for making a good decision on what to do with that treehouse. So let's take this one next, and we'll start to design the tree house that's going to go in this plant. Here we go. Japanese artist Takamori Aiba is my inspiration behind these bonsai tree houses. So let's do a progress report, shall we? What I've done with the living plant here is much like what you would do with a real tree. You'd start with the branch structure and you'd define where the platforms are going to be based on where the beams can go and where you can support different levels. So going from the base level here all the way to the top level, we've created little staircases and ladders and landings and so forth to get you from the bottom to the top. Okay, so what's next for our living plant treehouse? Well, it's the animation and lighting, the really over-the-top part of this project, I think, and something I referred to previously, the reference to Swiss Family Treehouse. We're going to have an operating water wheel on this treehouse. You know my fondness for water wheels, so we're going to put one in this little project. The way we're going to achieve that is this little 12-volt motor. Now, I've already attached a hub to the arbor of the motor. This little motor is geared down, so it will rotate very slowly, 3 RPMs per hour. And since it's 12 volt, I can also, with this transformer, light the buildings with little 12 volt green and wheat bulbs. So not only is the water wheel going to turn, but the water wheel, in theory, story-wise, is going to be powering the generator that lights the lights in the buildings. So this is fun. This is kind of over the top for a little miniature like this, but it's also something that model railroaders do, and I think it's really appropriate for this treehouse. So let's get started on wiring it up. Okay, now we've got our wiring and our motors and our lights wired in all the way from the bottom to the top. Power supplies right here, that's the 12 volt transformer. And we got our landings all finished, including step ladders and staircases and so forth. So now it's time for the buildings that are going to go in the bottom platform and the top platform. And before I actually build them, I want to do a little mock-up out of cardboard to make sure I've got the right proportions and scale. And then we're going to rebuild them in wood, because this particular model is built to be outdoors. It can either stay in a pot, or perhaps it could even go into a little railroad diorama I'm trying to get going out on the property. It's very reminiscent of Storybook Land. It's not as elaborate and quite as extensive, but it's inspired by Storybook Land. So my hope is that this treehouse can actually go into that diorama and be part of a bigger thing. So let's get going on the paper mock-up, shall we? All right, here we are. We've got our mass, and you see the water wheel's actually turning, so the motor works. That's just a thin cardboard cutout. Obviously the water wheel will have some dimension to it, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the mass of the mill at the bottom and the treehouse at the top will look like. I think we're good. It's kind of fun. It's got a little awning there. The windows and doors will be covered, so you won't be able to see in. So let's go ahead and rebuild these little cardboard buildings and do this for real out of wood. Well, I'm just finishing up some of the aging on our water wheel here. I've built both buildings, the mill at the bottom and the treehouse at the top, in wood and painted them. And we're ready for some final details. There'll be some railings, and I've got a fun little piece that goes up on top. And then we'll get into the final piece of this project, which is what to do at the base. That'll be next. That looks really nice. I'm very happy with it. Well, it sure is cute. I love this little treehouse in the living plant. It's been a success, although I do need to point out that the plant has been starting to go into shock. And that's from transplanting it from its original pot, where it had a very deep root ball, to a shallow vase where we lost some of the bottom roots, but they were secondary roots. The main root structure is about the same as the branch structure. It should be okay. We might lose all the leaves over the course of the next few months, and then they'll all grow back. But overall, I think it's a success. I'm very happy with our little treehouse here in a living plant. This scale, by the way, is 1/4 inch to the foot, which is twice the size of the little jewels that we built inside of the glass bell jars. And in the next episode, we're going to go up another scale. We're going to go up to 1/2 inch. And it'll be a little bit of memory lane there for me, because it's one of the first miniature tree houses I ever built. So I look forward to bringing that episode to you. In the meantime, thanks for visiting. Please subscribe. That gets the message to YouTube and to me about what you think about this project. Thank you for joining me here on Bob Baranick's Treehouse, and I'll see you again on the next episode. Bye.